Thank you for joining us today, Howard. It's really good to have you with us.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for the invite.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Our previous conversation was really interesting, so it'd be really valuable for you to share your insight with the leaders and the people that are listening. So, can you first of all, could you just introduce yourself and Shelforce, please?
Yeah, my name's Howard Trotter. I'm the business manager of Shelforce and have been since 2013. Shelforce dates back to 1839, so it's quite an old business, if you like, as part of Birmingham City Council.
Mm-hmm. And when we had the previous conversation, Shelforce is quite unique, isn't it, in terms of how it's structured and the people that work within the organisation?
Yeah, it's unique, basically. I mean, it was originally a stepping stone for employment for people with disabilities. So,
Mm-hmm.
but the reality was back in 2013-14, it just wasn't working. It was dependent upon grant aid, and it became commercially unviable. And it
Okay.
lost an absolute fortune. So that's when I sort of parachuted in 2013 to see if it could be made commercially viable. But you're absolutely right. It's unique in that 75% of the workforce have got disabilities. So it's a real challenge in terms of perception and lots of things really that had to be changed from that moment in time, if you like.
Mm-hmm. And so you talked about you being parachuted in to see if it was commercially viable, and I think the answer is unequivocally yes. So can
Yes.
you tell us about the success that you've achieved as a team over the last
I think if you put it just in
while?
blunt figures, really, I mean, back then in 2013-14, the turnover was 747,000, and it made a loss in that year of 1.8 million. And at that stage, we were getting grant aid that was worth probably about $250,000 each year as well. So
Okay.
in effect, the loss was more than that. If you bring it right up to date to last year, our turnover is now 8.9 million, and we made a profit of over 1 million. So there's been a massive transformation over the last 10 to 11 years,
Mm-hmm.
and not just in terms of profit and loss, which is obviously vital, but in in sort of the business itself and what it's achieved in terms of being an award-winning business, and you know if you 2021 was probably the pivotal moment when we won the Greater Birmingham Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year, and that was a
Mm-hmm.
real moment for us, really, because all the hard work that we'd done from if you like 2013 up until 2021 had, well, we broke even within 4 years, so it really started to come together, and that's when we were asked to enter into this the Chamber of Commerce Business Awards. Got
Mm-hmm.
Business of the Year. It was actually quite surreal because it was during COVID lockdown that we got it, and that's when the award ceremony was online, if you like. So whenever we got
No,
it, I was dancing around like a bit of an idiot in my in my front room because we
why
just
not? Why not?
achieved this award, which is a fundamentally brilliant moment for the whole team. And
Yeah.
then, and since then we went on to win Great British Business of the Year, and then last year we got the King's Award for Enterprise, which was an unbelievable award.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. More from a personal point of view, from people as well, because still the makeup of the workforce is 75% disabilities, and
Mm-hmm.
and the issue there with them individuals is, I think if you go back to 2013-14, the perception around the business wasn't good. It
Okay.
was it was because we got people with disabilities. Was the quality going to be as good? Were we going to be able to deliver on time? Were we going to be able to compete commercially? So this was the perceptions around the business at that stage. Now, nobody would say it publicly or out loud, but whenever I met with the customers that we had at that stage, this is what they were saying. So we had to change that perception. Whether it was true or
Mm-hmm.
not was irrelevant. It was still the perception.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fundamentally, there was lots of, in terms of business improvement, there were lots of challenges. There was the challenge of perception. There was the challenge of, the controls that were in the business at that time were just, they just weren't working. Basically, that,
Yeah.
the old adage, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it, and there was no real
Mm-hmm.
measurement in place in terms of, overhead costs, raw material costs, and as percentages of sales, that sort of thing. So the real
Mm-hmm.
basics, and then the manufacturing side of the business, there was no real lean manufacturing or world class manufacturing techniques in place. So all of that
Okay.
had to be put in place, as well as building the morale of the staff, which were basically a bunch of people that had no belief in themselves, because
Okay.
that's the box they were put into by into the disabled box, if you like. So we had to, and I hate boxes, if I'm honest about it, Amy. I really hate people being put in boxes. I hate boxes
Yeah.
altogether.
Same.
People come in these expressions, think outside the box. Why have a box at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was part and parcel of it. We had to sort of change the culture, if you like. And the culture was one about. I mean, it was quite brutal at the time. I can remember sitting with the staff, obviously disabled staff as well, and saying, "Look, if we don't change this together, we're not going to be here in a year's time. It's that simple, really. We have to change it. And it's our responsibility. And to be fair to them, they just punched above their weight every day of the week.
Clearly. Yeah.
Unbelievably,
Yeah.
the resilience that they had. And if you think about it logically, people that have been, for instance, deaf since birth, and understand what they've had to go through just to communicate, and then when you sort of look at a business issue, a delivery or whatever, in comparison, it's really not. It's not really the same, So,
Yeah.
so early on, I realised that resilience was really important to transfer that into the business and make that a part of the business makeup. And the results were just phenomenal, I mean, last year alone, since we won the King's Award, our growth has been 52%, which has
Amazing.
just been, unbelievable, really.
Yeah. Business aside, though, like what a boost for morale, and what a indication of just how successful you guys are.
Yeah, I think winning that award. I mean, there was a moment whenever when the award was being announced, and BBC arrived, ITV arrived, and the deputy Lord Lieutenant arrived, Helen Higson, who was a wonderful lady, and she stood in front of my workforce, and she just came up with this one liner, "I'm here on behalf of the King," and it was just it was like. I was looking at the workforce. It was like looking at your kids. Their jaws just dropped, and it was this moment that was sort of. There was a realization that we'd actually reached a point that was just almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
And for people that had no confidence at the start of this journey to be the King's men and women, and achieve this internationally renowned award was just absolutely life changing for them. To give them that degree of confidence within themselves, and really just look at the world and said, this is who we are. We are not people that should be stuck in a box. We are
Yeah.
this business. So that was an unbelievable moment.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that this morning, Howard. You made me emotional.
Sorry about that.
Don't apologise. Don't apologise. I think I'll just take a minute. I'll take a minute. But that was part of the reason for wanting to do the podcast because we had the conversation. And I think there were 4 or 5, maybe 6 things that you said, and I thought people need to hear this story, and leaders, especially that are building businesses, need to hear this story. So, can you just take a step back to 2013, 2014, that bit between 2013 and 2021, and tell us some of the sort of actions that you took, and because we can see the results, we've heard the results, it's fantastic. But what was it that you did to make those steps and build that culture?
Well, the first thing was when I was doing around profit and loss, basically, it was just understanding where the loss was coming from, basically, So the overheads were far too high, We had 3 factory units, so we brought them down to 2 factory units. At that stage, there was the order book was dying a death because people believed the business was going to shut down. So there was multiple fronts that had to be fought, basically. So one was based along, we've got to re-engage with our customers. Basically, that was a fundamental, because without business, there is no business. Without sales, rather, there is no business. So we had to re-engage with them, and they were disillusioned. They didn't particularly want to do business because they thought it was going to shut down and all this sort of stuff. So there was them barriers to overcome. We also had international ISO 9001 and 14001, and then the auditors just wanted to knock that on the head because nothing was happening. It was a bit of a disaster, if I'm honest with it. Obviously, we had a completely deflated workforce at that stage because they believed they were all going to lose their jobs. So we had to engage with the staff to basically say, look, this is not over. We can change this. We can make this happen. And so got all the profit and loss bits sorted out, so we knew exactly where we stood. Okay, got the communication levels going with our customers, so that we can
Yeah.
say, okay, look, you may have heard all this before, but you haven't heard it from me, I promise you, we will not let you down, And honestly, I would have dropped on my knees and begged them to give us a sale, at that point, because, I mean, if I'm brutally honest about it, when I first came to Shelforce, I'd never worked with people with disabilities before that, so I really didn't know what to expect. And like most business people, and I came, from successful business prior to that, everything is focused towards profit and loss, isn't it? You've got to develop new products, you've got to have all these things in place, but profit and loss is the key focus, if you like. So whenever you talk about people with disabilities, you think, actually, is that there's going to be a cost involved in that, or there's going to take more time, and do we really have time to do all of them things? So in the back of my mind, all that stuff was bubbling around as well, sort of thing. And if I'm honest about it, at that point, when I spoke to existing managers that were in place, they were saying, you can't do this, you can't talk to them this way, you can't do this. And I just thought, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. Unless we are honest about this and real about this, we're just not going to improve, So, so I sat with all the workforce in small groups, and I said, look, I need to know who you are and what you want to be, Are you a factory that employs disabled people, or are you a factory that manufactures quality product? I said, what do you want to be? And every one of them, bar none, said, a business that manufactures quality product. We don't want to be the disabled factory. So that was a great moment, and it was brutal honesty. So I said, okay, I'm a little bit like a football manager. I said, if we're 2-0 down at half time, what do you expect the team talk to be like? And they said, well, we expected a little bit of a roasting. Well, the words were a little bit different than that, but we'll keep it polite. But that's what they said. They're all football mad in here. So we sort of we understood each other then. So that, and in business, you need to be able to have the tough conversations when you're not performing as a business.
Yeah.
And as a manufacturing business, we have to be able to deliver in time. We have to be able to make the right quality product. So that culture part of it, and that understanding of, when we get things wrong, we're going to have a discussion about it. We're not going to mince words. We're just going to say, this is not acceptable. We need to change this. So that was part of it. Part of it also was, we work off a soft program that had all the bills and materials. So if you can imagine manufacturing product, you've got all these different elements that make a product. They're all costed. Whenever I investigated that, I found out that all the pricing structure was all wrong. So basically, whenever you were costing products, what you perceived as your profit was never your profit, because the raw materials were understated. The price of the raw materials were understated. So the profit really wasn't the profit. So there was all these different elements, if you like, that had to be fixed at the same time, really, because, it was just, it's a moving organization or process, if you like. And then there's the layout of the factory, which was all wrong. Manufacturing is basically a journey from start to finish. And basically on that journey, when we go on a new journey, let's say we jump into a car, we stick the sat nav on, and we make choices which are the quickest possible route, which is the most efficient route. Factories are no different in manufacturing. So we had to get the route plan correct, which meant moving machinery around and getting into cellular manufacturing, making the quickest possible way. But a really important part of that as well was the communication to the staff of what all this meant. Okay. So you can't come in as a consultant and start using Japanese philosophy terms of Kaizen and Kanbans and all that, because they just don't understand. Yeah. So I had to break it down into a communication style that they understood completely, like football, And for instance, when we talk about KPIs or performance indicators of any sort, I spoke to them about, okay, when you go to a football game and you're watching a match, is there any point of that match that you don't know what the score is? And they say, no, we know all the time. I said, well, why? And they say, well, because winning's important. And I said, of course it is. That's why we need to measure our performance, because if we don't know what that measurement is, how do we know what we have to do at half time to improve? So on. So it was a combination of all of that, that was sort of like drove the business forward, if you like, but I suppose the biggest battle was perception, perception from the customers, because they just didn't believe in the business anymore, and they didn't, out of just probably ignorance rather than anything else, thought that maybe disabled. And this is not having to go at anybody. It is just the way it was. They believe maybe that disabled people couldn't produce in the same fashion as any other business, if you like, or create the same product, which was absolutely rubbish. When I got into it, it was the opposite. In fact, but there was a spin off of that as well, Amy, which was, if you're an able-bodied person and you come into work, if I come into work and I'm having a bad hair day, which is quite regular, and I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself or whatever, and then I look at, there's a big chap called Lenroy that works out just opposite my office that's been deaf since birth, and every morning he's got this big cheeky grin and a big thumbs up, and it's a massive reset button, for people, for when you're having a bad hair day, you just think, actually, what have I got to whinge about here, so that is an inspiration within itself, and then out of all of this became a bond and a growth. When you're going through tough stuff together, there's a growth and a bond,
Yeah.
And that sort of family aspect of it then kicks in, and it becomes more than just a business or a team. It becomes family sort of thing, which we want to promote and bring into the business sort of.
Yeah, it sounds like you're absolutely nailing it. And those customers that were about to leave then, are they still with you now?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Completely turned around?
Well, look, our turnover's gone from 747,000 to 8.9 million.
Yeah.
The proof is in the figures. You can't.
Absolutely.
I mean, we brought new customers on board as well. So, and I think the success of winning awards and all that sort of stuff has had a massive impact, if you like, not only to the team but to how people look at us. So
perception.
Yeah, perception. It's that perception again. That's the battle we had to fix, really. But part of that as well was we got involved with in 2020 I got involved with a marketing. I mean, I've never been into marketing or sales because I've always been in manufacturing, and I've never seen the strength of it or understood the strength of it, if I'm honest about it. But I realise now that I was daft as a brush for not understanding how important it is to tell the story and shine a light into what you're doing and all the best things. So that was an important part, and the brief was very simple to perplex the people we work with. Was, I need you to shine a light into our world and show the world who we are, and we need to build a brand here. We need to build who we are and what we stand for. So that started in 2020 I think it was, and yeah, it's been phenomenal. And it's by no way finished or at the end of a journey. It's, if anything, it's just the beginning of a new journey. As it always is with business, isn't it? Yeah,
I love that, and that must have an impact on your people as well, knowing that it's not, we won the King's Award, this is it, same business as usual from here on out, knowing that that's not the case. That must be really powerful for them.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's a platform. It's a platform. And there's something about our psychology as a nation that, we like to see people really do well, but there's a part of us, a sinister part of us as well, when somebody's toppled off the perch, that people like to talk about that sort of thing. I'm not saying I enjoy it, but it is part of it, some people's makeup, if you like. So we use that as a sort of a constant push, to boost us along, to basically say, look, yes, we've got this far, but this is just a starting point. We can't let ourselves down now. When you win the Premier League or whatever it happens to be, you've got to go back the next year and do the same all over again. You've got to start from the beginning again. You cannot rest on your laurels and say, that's it, we've done it. It's just the beginning. And it's just a win for this year. And the reality is, with all of this lovely stuff and winning awards and that, we're only as good as last month's profit and loss and this week's deliveries if they go out on time. So we're really grounded in that. And I think because we've went through all that pain before, I mean, the brutal truth of it is, in 2013 and 14, we went from 106 people down to 18. Wow. Now, this was a community that was being broken up, a family that was being busted apart, basically. There were people outside the factory crying at me, because they were losing not just a job, but friendships that they'd built up over years, So this had this unbelievably tough, sort of brutal, sort of effect on every member of staff, and nobody here, myself included, has ever forgot them moments. So you cannot rest on your laurels and think job done. You can enjoy a moment,
Yeah.
when
And should do.
which you should do.
Yeah.
But it's just a moment, we've got to build more moments like that, in front of us, really. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Great story. And so when we spoke previously, we were talking about inclusion and some of the changes that you've made to enable people with disabilities to work really clearly, really effectively. And I think that's an important piece to include in the podcast, because there will be leaders out there that maybe have that perception that you talked about, that it might take us more time to train people with disabilities. It might not be easy. But can you talk about some of the changes that you've made and some of the adjustments to enable people
Yeah.
to
I think fundamentally, first of all, okay, I mean, I sort of recognize that there's no such thing as perfect. I'm not perfect. I've never met anybody that's perfect, so we've all so we're all sort of different degrees of imperfect. Okay, so in some way, that sort of, to me, draws a balance across everybody in terms of ability, So we don't view people as disabled in here. In fact, we never talk about disability. We genuinely don't talk about disability because it's just not a thing. We don't. We look at a process within the factory, okay, that is maybe sub-assemblies. Now, it doesn't matter that you're deaf when you're doing sub-assemblies. It doesn't matter what one iota, you know. We've got a chap in here that is, well, we've got a number of people that are autistic, but we've got one chap that runs two CNC controlled machines that is unbelievable. He runs two machines at the same time. He could not have a conversation with you at all, okay? That's the level of his autism, if you like. But as soon as, if anything comes to him that is not right, of the right quality, he spots it immediately. He just knows, and everybody in the factory knows it because he's shouting at the top of his voice it's wrong, which from a manufacturing point of view is a gift for me because you want people to recognise when things are not right. So
yeah.
so his, although he may be looked from the outside world as having a disability, his ability in here is phenomenal. So we just sort of look at things differently. We don't think of disability at all. We just think about, on this process or operation, what do you need to be able to do? Do you need to be a literary genius? Do you need to be a mathematician? We don't need any of them things. We need people that are going to work on a machine that understand how to operate that machine and what quality looks like when it comes on and what it comes off. That's what we need. We've got one chap here that does sub-assemblies, that has got cerebral palsy, and he does it from a seated position. He does it as good as anybody else in the factory, able-bodied or otherwise. The fact that he's sitting down makes no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's not about, this thing about disability, it doesn't, I mean, certainly there are degrees of disability that would not function within a factory environment. You've got to do your risk assessments and all that sort of stuff. So we can't be all things to all people. That's a fact. But there certainly is a large degree of people that can work quite easily in a factory, doing multiple operations, running machines, sub-assemblies, that are more than capable, And them team talks that we had back in 2013-14 about, it's us against the world, we've got to save this business. If we don't, we're not going to be here. Part of that discussion was, look, at our worst, we have to be better than the best, and that's what we said right from the very beginning. We said we have to be, on a bad day we said we have to be equal to the best, and a good day better than them. That's what we actually said. So it was really setting our stall out to say, look, there's no forgiveness in failure, really. And that sounds quite harsh, but it was about saving a business, so we had to do that. And everybody, we just all accepted it as a team, So and we do make reasonable adjustments for people. There's one chap that's partially sighted, so the area is really well lit and all that sort of stuff. And there's no great expense to doing something like that. So it's just really about making reasonable adjustments and and which are not a massive cost to the business for what you get back for it. I think just in industry generally, there's this general feeling that there's going to be some sort of cost, or it's going to take more management time, or it's going to, and it's not. It's not. It's about giving people an opportunity.
And so leading on to that, I wanted to talk to you about your hiring process, because that's fairly unique as well. Because I'm a big believer of meet people where you find them, and what do you need to do that job to the best of your ability. Everyone's an individual. So talk to me about your hiring process, because do people come in for a specific role, or do people come in for the organisation, and then you find them the right role and train them in the skills?
I think people find us, Amy. I think
Okay.
the one. If I had a pound or a penny for, for every time a mum or a dad's come up to me saying, "I've got my son's autistic and my daughter's this," is there any chance you can get it? It happens all the time. Unfortunately, it happens all the time because people just really struggle to get employment. So I'd be quite blunt about this and say that normal recruitment and processes to hire people are not fit for purpose, if I'm honest about it, because I've recently been through a recruitment process, and you take. I'll give you an example. Okay, we what we do is we basically find people that want to work with us. They find us. They go through an agency to begin with. There's no formal interview. I bring them into the factory. We bring them into the factory and we take them for a walk around and say, okay, what do you think about the noise and everything? And it doesn't frighten them. We're just taking a walk around the factory. That's all we're doing. And we're saying, okay, you can start on Monday and we'll give you a 6-month trial period. No pressure, And normally their parents are with them, so and that's what we do. And that 6 months is about finding out if they like us and we can get on with them, and about seeing what their abilities are. Not by putting them through some torturous process to them of what would be sitting in front of 2 or 3 people through an interview process. So we do that, and then if that works and they're happy, which 9 times out of 10 it does, then they're employed. Now, we've recently went through this process because we have to follow a process from a HR point of view, let's put it that way. And I knew these people were good. They'd been in the factory for months, so I knew they were good enough, but we still had to go through the interview process. And I give them the questions that they were going to be asked in the interview. We told them how to answer the questions because we knew they were already good enough. But even then, some people still folded under the pressure,
Yeah.
So the system is just not fit for purpose. So, but our route of doing it is evolving, if you like, because that work experience without the interview process really works. So the evolution of that should be at the end of that process. That's enough,
Yeah.
So we're in constant discussions now to evolve the process to make it much easier for people that have learning difficulties. Now, people with a learning difficulty could be somebody that is autistic and can't communicate, but are brilliant on 2 machines. But they couldn't sit in an interview and tell you what day it is, tomorrow. So we're constantly looking at evolving and adapting our processes to make it simpler to get for people in employment. And some people obviously can go through interview processes and all the rest of it, but it's not right for everybody.
No, absolutely not.
So I think industry-wide, we really need, or business-wide, we really need a process that says, or like a paid work experience that at the end of that, if you achieve that after 6 months, you've got the job. I think we need to make it that simple, really.
But it'd be fascinating as well to get their input in terms of what they would be comfortable with. And I know when I say they, that's a massive generalisation, but if you could take a collection of people that weren't comfortable with the traditional interview hiring methods and say, right, how would you build it for you? What's the perfect way for you? That'd be fascinating to understand.
Yeah, I know, Amy. They've really said this to me, work experience is it.
Okay.
But it's not just work experience. I mean, we talk about winning the shirt in Shelforce. So when people are having work experience here, it's about winning the shirt, and we
love that.
Yes, we can train people up, and our job is to make people the best version of themselves. We know that that's what we want them to be, and we know that people that are furthest from employment, that nobody is given a chance. When they're given the chance, will give it everything. So we know that. We just know that because of experience of people in here. So. What I want to see in anybody that comes in from work is passion and commitment, and that commitment and family values. And we talk about family values all the time. I mean, what wouldn't you do for somebody you love? So why can we not bring that into the workplace? And that's what we're trying to do. We want to bring that into the workplace. We want to say, and a lot of what we do is pastoral care as well. We understand the connection between home and work. So if it's tough at home, it's going to reflect in work. Tough in work, it's going to reflect in home. So you've got to round that, balance that circle, if you know what I mean. So we get all of that. We form for them. We do all sorts of stuff for them that helps them. And that's not a massive undertaking. It's simple stuff, that helps them in life. But what you're building out of that is a trust and a bond that is family based, so that you will do anything they'll do anything for you, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And in them
Yeah.
early days, when we had to get deliveries out, and people are paid a salary here and not overtime. And back then at 4:30, I can remember countless times we'd say, well, the delivery's not going to go out tomorrow unless we work a few extra hours. And in the beginning, I worked alongside them on the shop floor, to be fair. And me and the supervisor, one day we just stood there, we just carried on working, and the deaf lads come back and signed, what are you doing? And Maxine, the supervisor, said, well, we've got to make sure this delivery goes out tomorrow. They just took their coats off and went back to work. And they weren't getting paid for the same thing. And you just think to yourself, where would you get that anywhere else on the planet, And that is the level of commitment because of that, because the way people are treated, and because you're treated as an equal. And why shouldn't you be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the madness of it. Why shouldn't you be,
Yeah, yeah. It comes back tenfold, doesn't it? You treat people as they want to be treated, and treat people right, and it comes back tenfold.
Absolutely. And our job is always about creating the right environment, isn't it? It's about creating the right environment so people can be the best version.
Yeah.
We've got 3 new team leaders that are training at the minute, and we've done this, I call it a cultural dive, basically. And all it really is I sort of talk about my background to them, just the tough times, if you like, when I was a kid and all the rest of it. And I basically say to them, look, when you come into Shelforce, you get to park all your baggage, You don't have to bring anything with you, So whatever you want to be, whatever you want your future to be, you can make it happen here, You don't have to carry any bad stuff in with you, because we've all got bad stuff, So the following week, the team leaders come in with these. I didn't force them to. I said, look, you put down what you don't, or don't do anything. It makes no difference to me. And the stories they come out with would make your hair curl. I mean, honest to God. But the truth about it was, trust was built from that, because people were exposing their biggest hang-ups that they've had in their life, so that we could understand that when we're working together, we can park all that and just move forward,
Yeah.
And it sounds but that just happened in a simple team meeting, so it wasn't over weeks or months or took a lot of time. It was just a team meeting,
Yeah.
In a training session.
It's that powerful.
And it's that powerful.
Yeah.
When you've bared your soul to everybody, and you're all the same, you're all joined at the hip then to just drive forward and change your own future and everybody else's future around you.
Yeah. Massive power in vulnerability.
Yeah.
Massive power in that, and the bonding that comes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you take a look at, adversity within itself, no matter where it is in the world, or even families and all the rest of it, is what makes you stronger, isn't it? It is what makes you stronger. And there's that resilience thing, you hear businesses, especially after COVID and through COVID, talking about resilience. I mean, in a business, where does resilience come from? If you ask the question, where does resilience actually come from? Is it from a profit and loss sheet? Is it it's not, it's from people. Resilience comes from people,
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you go to find that resilience? And people that have had it all their life because of the situations they've been in. So it's the best kept secret in the world,
Yeah.
People with disabilities.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Just people with disabilities have gone through the hard yards, so they've got it in bucket loads of it, So yeah.
Yeah. And they're applying it, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's the concept of anti-fragility, I think, is really powerful. So I was reading about it recently, and the difference between resilience, in that you keep getting hit and then you get back up, versus anti-fragility, where you keep getting hit and that makes you stronger, was just a game changer for me. Because that I think that's what you're talking about as well, because your guys have totally been through the mill and then bounced back, but have come back stronger for it.
Yeah.
And it sounds as though that's really powerful, and that acknowledgement that you see that as well for them, in them.
Yeah. I think culturally as well. I mean, I'm a big sports fan, well, particularly rugby. And I'm Irish man. My wife's English, she's England man, I'm Irish. So we've had lots of fallouts over the year for all the right reasons. And don't get me wrong, I love England as well. But I was listening to Paul O'Connell, who's an Irish coach, and he was saying that whenever Irish players make a mistake on the pitch, you'll hear all the teammates around them saying, next win, the next win. Their psychology is, when something bad happens or you've just made a mistake, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, because it's done, it's finished. You can't change it. You can't time travel back and do it differently. It's gone. So focus on the next thing you do as the best thing you've ever done. So
Yeah.
it's always a positive statement. You make a mistake, get back up, and the next thing you do it the best you've ever done it before.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is the culture. That is a winning culture. So or part of a winning culture, if you like. So I think a lot of sports as well, like Clive Woodward, who when England won the Rugby World Cup, I mean, he
Yeah.
took all his measurement from business.
Yeah.
From when he worked in Australia for Rank Xerox, I think, or something like that. He used all the KPIs and business KPIs in rugby and
Yeah.
transformed the
Yeah.
English team. Micromanaged every part of the team into small subgroups and groups. To get the best out of the team, and he won a World Cup.
Yeah. It goes both ways. There's so many different applications of sport in business and vice versa, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you talked about the evolution of the hiring process. What is next? You said it's evolving, or it's going to continue evolving. Have you got ideas as to where that might go?
Yeah, look, I think, generally, we're at the start of a journey. It's a reset button for us. So growth is extremely important for us. We want to change the world. If I'm honest about it, we just want to change the employment world. We want.
Yeah.
We could put up for diversity and inclusion awards and all those sort of things. And somebody asked me once about diversity and inclusion, and I've got a little granddaughter who's sort of 18 months old. She's a beautiful wee thing. And I would love her to grow up in a world that there was no such thing as diversity and inclusion awards anymore, because it's who we are.
This is the thing.
It's just who we are. It's as naturally as breathing, So so the game changer for me is basically to look at sort of employment generally, in that there's a route for everybody into employment, so that work experience is the new job interview, and it's paid work experience, that you give people genuinely a decent chance after you've done your risk assessments and all the rest of it, so I think that is extremely important. So the future for me will be to try and shape the way industry and the way that we look at employment, if you like, and to be honest with you, I think that's more achievable if Shelforce continues to knock growth out of the park and profit out of the park, because success, you copy success, don't you? You look at, why is that place successful? Why are they making so much money? Why are they growing so much? And I know why all of that's happening, but we need to tell the world about that. And if we can get other businesses to genuinely, just start off maybe even in a small way, and give people an opportunity. Be honest from the outset, of this is what we need to achieve in this business, and just give it a go. Just give it. You've got nothing to lose, What's there to lose? All you can do is learn something new and gain something. But you just might come across people like I've got that absolutely give you 110% back every day of the week. So to me, in business, we're all involved in risk management, in business, aren't we? We make decisions that carry risk with them, be it a new product or whatever it happens to be. So we already make them choices. So why not make another choice? To give everybody a chance and say, we're open to this, and let's have a crack.
It's such an inspiring story, Howard. I'm on board. I completely agree, and I think that's why this podcast is so important to share, because then you're getting that message out there, and you're absolutely right. You stand on the shoulders of giants, don't you?
Yeah.
And if somebody's getting it right, you can go, why is it working for them, and what else? What can I take from that story that can make as big an impact, or at least some impact?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing the story.
No worries.
Before we go, I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. So in terms of a book or a documentary or a podcast, what have you consumed that other people might be able to refer to that's been helpful in your career?
Years and years and years ago, there was a chap called Sid Johnson, spelled SYD Johnson, and he wrote a book. He was sort of like a manufacturing guru.
Okay.
But he was from Yorkshire, and he basically was all about the greatest asset of any business is the people, and what I learned from that man was unbelievable. And how to just deal with people, and how to communicate properly, and how to to grow a business, if you like. So I would recommend that look up Sid Johnson. He wrote a book on improving business, and I think that fundamentally was a real game changer for me.
Okay, I'll give it a look. Thank you for that. And in terms of leaders, past or present, famous or otherwise, that you particularly admire, does anyone stand out?
You know, it would have to be Andy Farrell, the Irish rugby manager, who has took Ireland from an average rugby team to a world class team. And if you look deeply into what he's done, it's all about family and culture and about understanding every single member of your team and what makes them tick and what baggage they've had and how they can grow as people. And Ireland, for the last year or so have been number one in the world. Didn't win the World Cup to my great disappointment, but there's always another time. But
the next win.
But to be number one in the world is not a bad place to be. So I think sport and him they have a great influence on business, genuinely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Such a great story, Howard. I'm really pleased that you took the time to share this with us. Thank you so much. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't asked you yet?
No. Well, I'll just say one thing, right? I was asked a question the other week about if you could have a conversation with your younger self, what would you say to yourself,
Great question.
Which I thought was a cracking question, to be fair. And it stumped me, if I'm honest about it. But whenever I thought about it, I thought, actually, what really is important is work-life balance, I'm lucky. I've been married for 40 years. I've got 2 fantastic kids, a lovely granddaughter and that. But there were times in my career that I worked 7 days a week. And I think all business people do to a certain extent. Yeah. But the truth of it is, and even if you look at the best athletes or the best, downtime is really important. You have to recharge your batteries. You have to go into your workplace every morning energized. You're not going to do that if you've just pulled a 14-hour working day. So that balance is extremely important, that you've got that right, So my advice to anybody would be, just create that balance, so that every day you go in, you look forward to going to it and you're pumped and ready to go.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I would say.
Great advice. I do the opposite. So I've got an 85-year-old alter ego called Doris. And I think, what would Doris want me to do? Would Doris want me to go for that walk and get out of the office today? Would Doris want me to eat that chocolate cake? Yeah. So often I do it for Doris.
Yeah, happy days.
So I go the other way. Yeah, but it works.
Yeah, brilliant.
Great advice. Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time, Howard. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And I'll let you get back to your day job.
No problem. You're very welcome, Amy. Thank you very much.